There are many sayings and expressions down through the years people have used to reiterate and reinforce the fact that whatever you do to others will eventually come back and be done to you, whether it's good or bad. Why is it people don't live by this seemingly unavoidable law? Well, it's because it doesn't come back immediately, usually. Of course, sometimes if you slap someone in the face, they may slap you back in that moment. But many times these things are done under the table, let's say. Hidden. Sneakily. Sneakily done. Maliciously done. And the person that is done to is totally unaware that it's happening to them or where it's coming from. And the person doing the deed, if it's a bad deed, it can work just as well if it's a good deed. But if it's a bad deed, the person doing it doesn't receive back the repercussions and the consequences of it in that moment. It may be a week, a month, 6 months, a year, 6 years, before it ever returns to the giver or the sender or the doer. So he never puts these things together. What he usually does, or she, is blames the person that's doing it to them, rather than looking back at their life and thinking, have I ever done this to someone else? Because these things are a lesson for you to learn how other people feel, to learn that maybe you shouldn't do that again. If you don't like the way it feels when it comes back to you, maybe you should stop doing that in the future. Otherwise, if you keep planting those seeds of hurt, let's say, you're going to reap more seeds of hurt. And just as you plant one seed of corn in the ground, when that corn stalk grows up, there are many ears of corn with many seeds, which, if planted, will produce many more stalks and many more ears and many more seeds. It's actually an unlimited number because you never know how many will be born from that one seed. And so it is when you do things to others that you don't want done to you. You continue to plant those seeds, you will continue to reap a harvest of negativity. But the good news is it works just as well the opposite way. If you sow good seeds and do good to people, whether they know it or not, it will come back to you in a harvest multiplied many times over. But just as with the bad things that don't come back immediately, the same is with the good. You may do something good for someone and not see any results. It may take a week, a month, 6 months, a year, or 6 years before it comes back. But come back it will, because you sowed that seed. These things happen. A slight interruption by my son. I'm back. Okay, where was I? These things come back to you. And the good things that you do, whether people know it or not, come back to you. Here's the mistake most people make. They do something for somebody and they expect it to come back from that person. And here we run into a dilemma in relationships, in intimate relationships. If you're with someone and you're doing everything, and it's not coming back to you from that person, you're liable to get a little resentful and angry. And that is called a one-sided relationship. And you're actually not doing that person any good either. Because if you're not better together, you just as well be apart. Because you're doing all the giving and the other person is doing all the taking. Sometimes relationships are like that. Now, it's not going to be equal all the time. It's not going to be 50-50 all the time. Sometimes you're going to be giving 75% and they're not going to be giving but about 25%. But there's going to be days ahead that they're giving 75 and you're only giving 25. But it should average out to where you're both giving to each other. This is where people get angry because they think, well, it doesn't work. I've been given to her, and she doesn't give anything back to me. As I said earlier, that is the mistake people make. They expect it back from the person they're giving it to. Now, if she's not giving it back to you, that doesn't mean that your gift has gone, unrewarded. It will come back to you. Now, it may not come back in this relationship, and it looks like probably it's not going to because you're doing all the giving and she just keeps taking. If it's that way, it could be him too, whichever way it's going. But you cannot give. It's a law. It's a universal law, God's law, whatever you want to call it. You cannot give without it coming back to you somewhere. Now, it will come back to you if you're giving to this person and you feel cheated or resentful or like you're doing all the work in the relationship, then you may have to walk away from that relationship. But it will come back to you what you've given sometime down the road. And you should not be in a relationship where you're the one doing all the giving all the time. What's the point in being in a relationship like that? You both should complement each other. You should be better together than apart. Now, some people say, well, look, Mark, you've been married more than once, and you're not married now, and your relationships are all failed. Well, you could look at it that way. Once again, that's perspective. I have been married 4 times. If you count successful marriages or relationships by the amount of time that you two spent together, saying that, okay, a person's been married for 50 years or 30 years, that's a successful marriage. Many people have been married for many years and are very unhappy. They stay together because financially they can't afford to leave, or because of the kids, or because of that. Now, if you consider that a successful relationship, then I guess you could call my relationships failed because they ended. But if you put them all together, if that's your measure of a successful relationship, I've had probably 25 to 30 years of successful relationships, and with a variety of different people, which I've learned a lot from. Not the same person that whole time. And they did end. Does that mean that the whole thing was a failure? Suppose if you want to perceive it that way, you can. I don't look at it that way. I look at it as a way of learning valuable lessons from each relationship I had. And more so than a person was with just one person for 30 or 40 years. Not to say that their relationship is not successful, but I have learned much from these things, from these different people, from these different types of relationships. And that's what I try to share with people. No, I'm not a relationship expert, nor is a person that has 50 years together. We each have different lessons we've learned in those times, which help people in different ways. But back to the original point, what you put out comes back to you. What I'm putting out today will come back to me. I've put out thousands of videos by now, and I've helped hundreds of people through the years. I don't expect it back from those people, but you cannot put value out into the universe without it coming back to you. And I expect it back from somewhere, not from you, who's listening to me right now, but from somewhere. It will come back to me somehow, some way. Usually when you least expect it. It's just like the law of gravity. You can't see the law of gravity. You can see its effects. And if you look around at the people that you've grown up with, the people you've known, the people that you associate with, look at what they're putting out into life. Is their conversation always negative? Are they cutting people down? Are they criticizing people all the time? What is their life like? What does their outer world look like? Are they happy? Are they abundant? Are they prosperous? Are they wealthy? And prosperity and wealth is not only money. There's much more to it than that. So observe and think. Think for yourself. Look around and see. Don't listen to others. Listen to your inner voice. It can tell you where to go, when to go, how to go, and how much to give and when not to give. Have a wonderful day.